Was that awesome or what? Let's hear it for what I love that God is changing lives through what you guys are doing, and that we all get to be a part of it together. And baptisms are just such a great picture of that. So, yeah, wow, neat. Well, welcome back to Be Rich, everybody. Anybody want to be rich? Nobody wants to be rich. I kind of like to be rich, but I'm just, yeah. Anybody rich? All right, we got one or two people. All right, excellent. Two rich people. I'm preaching to you this week. Everybody else, you can just check out. We're in a series entitled How to Be Rich, because my prayer for you is that someday you will be rich, and when you are, that you'll be really good at it, right? You want to be good at being rich. In the book of Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 17, the Apostle Paul is writing to Timothy, his protege, and he's telling him what to teach to the people in the church. And he tells them, now, when it comes to the rich people, you gather them up, circle them up, and you tell them, he says, command those who are rich in this present age to be rich in generosity and in good deeds. And so this is a very specific, and there's some other things that we're going to unpack this week that he says to rich people. And it's really important that if you are one of the one or two people here who are rich, that you get your head around this, because there are some side effects to being rich that if you're not aware of, it will blow up your life. It will blow up your faith. It will lead you to bad places. And so we're going to talk about what those are. For the rest of us, just enjoy this as we talk to the rich people, okay? Truth is, most Americans aren't very good at being rich. The more we earn, the more we make, the less we give proportionally, statistically speaking. And so people who make a little bit are much more open-handed with what they have than people who make a lot. And it seems to be something about the more you make, the less you want to share. And so, when the Apostle Paul tells Timothy and commands us rich people to be rich in generosity and good deeds, something's wrong if the percentage is going down while the amount is going up. And the reason that is that wealth has side effects, right? It does. Rich people tend to be a little weird. Not all of them. Some people avoid. Have you ever met a weird rich person? Anybody met a rich? They're just a little bit close-handed. They kind of, like, everybody's after my stuff, you need to stand aside. Not all rich people, but some people are. And it's because wealth has side effects that for the most part we're completely unaware of. Did you know that rich people live in denial? Rich people live in denial. They won't admit they're rich. They probably don't even know that they're rich, but rich people do. They live in denial. Now, this is not something we see in other categories in life. Tall people will admit they're tall. Short people will admit they're short. Artists will admit that they're artsy. And extroverts can't wait to tell you how extroverted they are, right? But rich people, you ask them, are you rich? And they'll say, no, I'm not rich. And the problem is they don't even know when it happened to them. Now, if you live in the United States of America, chances are, by world standards, you're rich. If you make $40,000 a year, you're in the top, total household income, $40,000 a year. You're in the top 4% of the wealthiest people on the planet. If you make $48,000 a year combined household income, you're in the top 1%. That's kind of, the one percenters that everybody talks about. You're one of them. And you didn't even know it. And you're sitting there, going, I don't feel rich. And that's true. You probably don't feel rich. And there are reasons for that. We're going to talk about those next week. You got to be back for next week's message, because you got to know why you don't feel rich. And we're going to deal real practically with how we navigate all that. So be here next week. This week we're talking about the side effects. And one of them is denial. We just don't even know when it happened to us. A second side effect is that rich people are plagued by discontentment. Rich people are plagued by discontentment. There's this need for more and faster and better. And the reason that is that wealth is an appetite. And like any other appetite, the more you feed it, the more you need. It'll be satisfied for a little bit, but then that hunger comes back on stronger after that, because appetites are never fully and finally satisfied. And when you feed an appetite, it grows. And when we get more, if you're not rich, you start off not rich and you get a little bit of stuff, if you're not careful, you will start an appetite cycle that will grow out of control. And the more you get, the more you will need. And this is why people with enormous income streams, maybe compared to what you make, you look at people who make 2, 3 times what you make, declare bankruptcy at a faster rate than people who make less. People who live in the rich neighborhoods declare bankruptcy at a faster rate and in a larger percentage than people who live in middle and lower income neighborhoods. And the reason is the more you get, the more you need. And so you have to spend more, and you have to have the nicer car and the nicer this and the nicer that. And pretty soon you're outliving your income, and you're rich, and you don't even know you're rich. And so that's what happens, because it is an appetite. And we have this need to upgrade and have better and faster and newer stuff. It's the upgrade problem, really. Now maybe you're not rich, and I pray that someday you will be. But rich people do crazy stuff. So you want to avoid the crazy stuff. You know what rich people do? I've done some of this stuff, so please. I realized the other day, I am rich. I'm one of 3 people in the room. But rich people will do crazy things. They'll walk into a kitchen that has a functional refrigerator and stove and cabinets and a microwave and all that, and they'll tear it all out, and they will install a stove and a refrigerator and a microwave and cabinets. Who does that? Rich people do that. Rich people do that. Rich people will take a perfectly good car to a dealership and give it to them. A car that will get them from point A to point B, and they'll take it, it's got lots of life left on it, and they'll take it into a dealership and give it to the dealer along with a big pile of money and drive away in a car that will get them from point A to point B. Who does that? See, maybe you are richer than you think you are. I'm just saying, rich people do that. It's getting tense here. Rich people go stand in line at the Apple store texting from a perfectly functional iPhone to get the latest and greatest iPhone with 2 more megapixels on the camera, because that's what you got this appetite. It's got to be newer, it's got to be faster, it's got to be better. Rich people, I am guilty. Rich people will stand in front of a closet full of clothes, and they'll say, maybe you've heard this before, I don't know, I've just heard that this happens. I don't have... Yeah, right. See, you are a rich person. I counted my shoes this morning. I've got 10 pairs of shoes. Who needs 10 pairs of shoes? Somebody raised their hand over here. It's awesome. I need 100. It's a need. And in reality, we have all kinds of clothes and all kinds of shoes. And I mean, rich people have houses for their cars. They park their cars in a house, and we can take care of them that way. And in reality, guys, we are so blessed, and we have so much more than, I went to Vietnam several years ago, and I met people who literally live in cardboard houses with, sheet metal roofs, and some of the happiest people I've met on the planet live in cardboard houses, which is just crazy. But they aren't in this cycle yet. And the more we get, the more discontented we become, and the more we feed that hunger, the more that hunger drives us, and the more we have to have, and the more we have to spend, and the more we have to upgrade, and we find ourselves in a place where we're not being rich very well, and where our stuff owns us, we don't own our stuff. And it's not a very pretty place to be, is it? But it's a reality. It's one of the side effects of wealth. Now, wealth in and of itself isn't a bad thing. God blesses people, but he blesses us to be a blessing, not to hoard, and not to just feed our appetites and spend it all on ourselves. And so wealth has side effects. And if you are wealthy, if you are rich, and I think there might be more than 1 or 2 of us here that are, if you are, you're at risk. And so the Apostle Paul is warning those of us who are blessed and rich in this present world to be generous and to be rich in good deeds. And he points out some other things that are a real hazard to your soul if you're not careful, other side effects of wealth. And one of them is that rich people tend to be arrogant. Now, you might not think this, you might not see this, but they do. He says, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant. Now, how did he know? Anybody ever met an arrogant rich person? When I was in Vietnam, I had to fight this in myself because there's something about showing up and being the wealth. I mean, like the discrepancy is unbelievable in what I have and what my friends in Vietnam have. And there's this propensity to think that if you have more, then you're smarter, and everybody wants to listen to what you have to say, and you begin to believe the lie about yourself that somehow you're better than everybody else if you're rich. And that happens here. You don't have to go to Vietnam to see that happen. And when you begin to believe that lie, that you're better than, you're smarter than because you have more than, you're in dangerous territory. That's an ugly place to be. You know, that's why the highest compliment you can pay a rich person is that they're worth tons and tons of money, but you would never know it, right? Because there's something refreshing about somebody who has been blessed and has excelled, and yet they walk with humility towards other people and walk open-handed towards other people. You know, there's another hazard to wealth as well, and that hazard is that rich people's hope tends, not always, you have to fight this, but it tends to migrate from God to our stuff. We put our hope in what we have. We think maybe we can save our way to safety. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. What Paul's saying is, look, you think you can save your way to safety, but you're one diagnosis away from leaving it all behind. You know, you're one stock market crash from losing most of it. You think you can come up with your plans and put your hope in that and get it all and get all wound around the axle about how much you have and how much you need and all the what ifs, but in reality, it's so uncertain. It's so uncertain. It's not a thing worth placing your sense of hope in. And when he talks about hope, he's talking about what we lean on. We lean on our stuff and the security that we think we can create for ourselves rather than leaning on God. We draw our identity from our stuff rather than the one who gave the stuff to us in the first place. And it's a pathetic way to live, but when you're wealthy, when you have, it is the natural propensity of your heart. Jesus said, where your wealth is, there your heart will be also. It's a hazard of living in the skin and being wealthy. Boy, it's getting quiet in here. Boy, you guys. Let me ask you a question. How much money would you need? Like, this is a serious question. Don't blurt it out loud, please. Just keep it to yourself. But how much would you need to secure your life against every eventuality that you might face, to be completely financially secure? How much would you need? Now, we all have a different number in mind. Some of us have 10 million, 5 million, 1 million. If I could get $50,000, that would be great. Whatever it is for you, it is for you. But here's what I know the answer is for all of us. It's more than you currently have. It's more than you currently have, because when you get to $5 million, you know what happens? It's not enough. One what if pops up again. And there are things that you hadn't considered, and you got your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, and you got to get more, and you got to get more, and you end up chasing a vapor your entire life. Now, the less a person has, the easier it is for them to be generous. And we see this again and again and again in the research. It shows that people with less give more proportionately. Because when you don't have much, you don't put your hope in what you don't have. But when your hope is in what you do have and not in God, then you begin to close your hands around it and protect it. But people who don't have an illusion that their future is somehow secured by their stuff. But those of us that do have stuff, it's easy to live in that illusion, isn't it? And when wealth becomes your hope, you will begin to hoard. That's what we do. And guys, hoarding is ugly. Just saying, it's not pretty. And yeah, you'll give some show-off money here and there. I'll get your name on a park bench or on a building or something, but you'll never be truly, truly generous with what God has entrusted to you. And yeah, you may reach your financial goal, but when you get there, you'll realize you're going to need more. And you will never be satisfied, because wealth is an appetite, and appetites are never fully and finally satisfied. Now, there's some of us who, you don't have two pennies to rub together, and you're like, well, that would never happen to me. It will if you're not careful, because it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. We get a little bit. We're like, oh, and a little bit more, oh, and a little bit more. And as you become more wealthy, your hands begin to close, and you become greedy. You know what greed is? Greed is believing that everything that God places in your hand was meant for you. And greed is ugly. Hoarding is ugly. And for some of us who don't feel rich, if we're honest with ourselves, that's begun to happen. He says, command them not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God. And the implication here is that wealth becomes a substitute for God. Paul juxtaposes wealth and God, and that they're somehow in competition with one another. And Jesus said this over and over again. People ask, why do pastors always talk about money? And the reason is because Jesus always talked about money. Jesus talked more about money than he did about heaven or hell or prayer or love or anything else. You know why? Because Jesus was after your money. That's not why. The reason he did is because Jesus understood that the thing that would compete for the affection of your heart, the hope of your heart, was going to be stuff. He called it mammon. And mammon was stuff, money, all of it, our wealth, everything that constitutes our wealth. And that if the thing more than anything else in this world that would compete to be God in your life would be stuff. And if you weren't aware of it and you didn't know that that was the case, you would fall for it. And it's not that being blessed, and most of us are very blessed, is a bad thing. It's being unaware and not being rich well that is the problem. And it not only robs our world and our community of the blessings that God wants to pour out through us, but it robs us at a heart level of being the kind of people, the free, loving, giving people that God's created us to be. And it's so subtle. And it happens just incrementally. And we wake up one day and we realize, oh my goodness, my heart has drifted from God, from God to my stuff. And now I've got this fear. And now I've got this need for more. And now my priorities are out of line. And it happens so subtly. And like I said, I pray that you are richly blessed and that you have money in the bank, but you have peace in your heart as well. And that God would bring freedom to every single one of us in this arena. And this is a big deal. It's why Jesus talked so much about it. And it's why Paul says, command those who are rich in this present age to not be that way. Don't let that happen to your heart. So let me ask you this question, and again, don't answer out loud. In all honesty, has your hope begun to migrate? As your pastor, I have to admit mine has. I've been so blessed. My car lives in a house. I've got a barn that I park my car in and built a house for I didn't build it for it. It was built for a horse originally, but I'm so blessed. And I have to fight the propensity of my heart to drift. And so do you. Every one of us does. If we allow our hearts and our hope to migrate, we become ungrateful. We become entitled. We become ugly. And our hands close around what we do have, and our giving goes down as our income goes up. And we begin to believe the lie that everything God puts in our hands was meant for us. That's no way to live, guys. It's no way to live. And yeah, you may be able to insulate yourself financially from the whatevers of life. You may not. I don't know. You might get to the end of your life, live a nice long life, and have a big pile of money to show for it. But you're going to trade some things. If that's what you're pursuing, that's where your hope is, because you'll be chasing a vapor your entire life. You will be working harder and harder to get more and more and somehow create some kind of life, and you will pay for it relationally. You'll tell your kids, I'm doing this for you, sweetheart, and sweetheart will look at you and say, I don't think you're doing it for me. I think you're doing it for you. Tell your spouse, look, we got to work harder, and we got to, so we can have a better life than our parents and our kids and all of that, and I'm doing it for you, babe. And babe's going to say, no, I think you're doing it for you. And you will trade away the best years of your life chasing something you'll never catch. Now, why? Why would you do that? You'll be unhappy. Some of us make more money now than we ever thought we would, and you're unhappy because you're always asking, what if, and I need a little more. And you're never content, and your hope has migrated from God, who richly provides everything you need for your enjoyment, to the stuff that he has provided. And it's a desperate place to be inside, and you're going to waste your life, and in the end you're going to end up being a hypocrite, because you know, since you're here, you know that in the end, when you're facing eternity and you've got this pile of stuff that you can't take with you, and you call out to God and say, my hope is in you. It's been in this my whole life, but now it's in you. And God says, because God is gracious and compassionate, and he welcomes you and forgives you, you're going to look a lot like a hypocrite. And you'll never get back those years with your kids and your spouse and the people you could have blessed and encouraged and lifted up along the way. And you're going to miss all of that. And why would you do that for a pile of stuff that you have to leave behind anyway? We trade a lot when our hope drifts. And you'll never get those best years back. Man, you could hear a pin drop in here. Heavy, right? See, when we are as blessed as we are blessed, there are some hazards that you have to be aware of, or they'll wreck your heart. They'll wreck your life, and they'll wreck your priorities, and you will end up regretting a lot. And so the Apostle Paul says, look, command those who are rich in this present age to be rich in good deeds, to not be arrogant, to not put your hope in wealth, but to put your hope in him, and to be rich in generosity and good deeds. And you know what? I know rich people like this. I know rich people who do this so well. It is possible to do. It's hard to do, and you have to be on it, and you have to monitor your heart nonstop, but it's possible. I know rich people who own their possessions rather than their possessions owning them. I know rich people who live open-handed, and they don't believe that it's all for them, but they share what they have with others. They're not afraid of what if. They don't live in fear. They can seize the day, and they're easy to be around, and they've got money in the bank, and they've got peace in their hearts, and they're making a difference in our world, and they're having more fun. Jesus said it's more blessed. He should have said it's more fun to give than receive, and it is. It's more blessed to give than it is to receive, and they know what that means, and that is awesome. And they're good at being rich. You know, when the opportunity to do the wrong thing comes up, but it's going to, because if they do the right thing, it's going to cost them money. They'll do the right thing anyway, because their hope isn't in their money. Their hope is in God, and they don't really care, and they're not afraid because God has got them, and they know what they have is from God anyway. They know how to be rich well. And my prayer for you, for every one of us, is that we would be rich well. Because in reality, guys, we are rich. And in reality, we are at risk for every one of these side effects because we were born in this country. And I don't think God's mad at us for that. But I do think God holds us accountable for what happens in here as a result of that. And I just pray that every one of us would be awesome at being rich. And one of the ways we do that is we practice. And so we're going to practice during this series, Being Rich Well. And last week we brought in the Christmas boxes, right? I think we brought in 435 Christmas boxes that we're sending out around the world. So way to go, Vineyard Church. Give those folks a round of applause. This week, we're going to continue with this tidal wave of generosity. We're doing a special offering, as Mike said, and every penny of that special offering is going to organizations in our community, not the Vineyard Church, outside the church, that are killing it in making a difference in people's lives. They're feeding the poor, serving orphans, helping the disabled, blessing those with special needs, and bringing hope to the homeless in our community. I'm going to tell you in just a minute who we're going to be working with and exactly what we're going to be doing. And I hope that you give, and I hope that you give big, because the antidote to greed in our lives is generosity. It breaks the grip of greed on your heart. And so we're going to practice. We're going to go on from there. Next week, we're going to talk about service opportunities with these same organizations, and I hope every one of us volunteers several hours over the coming weeks to make a difference in our community and shine some light. And then on the last week of this series, we're going to do a food drive, and I hope you go shopping and just bring in more food than you can carry. 2 trips from the car. That'll be December 3rd. So here are the organizations we're given to and that we're working with. The first one is Youth Services Systems. If you're not familiar with youth services, they work with youth, but they also work with the homeless in our community. And they do a project that our team, as we were evaluating these organizations and meeting with their folks, we said, this is a project we want to be a part of. What they do is they have something called the Freeze Shelter. And if you're familiar with the homeless issue in Wheeling, there are several homeless shelters that homeless people can go to, but they will be blacklisted if they don't follow the rules. And so a lot of homeless folks are mentally ill or dealing with just mental health issues or addiction issues. And what the folks at Youth Services said is it's not okay during the coldest months of the year for them to have no place to go. It's not okay for people to freeze to death on the streets of Wheeling when we've got this building. And so they said, you can come here, no blacklist. And so at 10 o'clock at night, from the middle of December through March, they open up their doors. About 30 to 40 homeless people show up. Some of the most destitute homeless people show up. They feed them a meal, and they give them a warm bed to sleep in. And I think that's awesome. And so we're going to have opportunities to volunteer and help out there at the Freeze Shelter, and I hope that you will. It's quite an experience. Open your eyes a little bit. But the other thing that we said is, because they try and get people to make meals and they have to come up with about 75 meals over the course of the winter. I said, what if we just took care of the meals for you? What if we just cooked the meals? And we figured out there's about 60 nights that need to be covered, past what they've already got covered. And we said, well, what if we just cook all of those? And then the challenge was, well, where do you put that many meals and keep them frozen and all that? And so we contacted Ziegenfelder's popsicle factory, and they said, sure, bring them on over. So we're going to be storing these meals. We're going to make 60 meals for 40 people. It's 2,400 meals, and we're going to feed the homeless people of Wheeling over the winter. Yeah. And I'm pleased to report that the first donation for Be Rich came in last week. It's a cow. Welcome to West Virginia, everybody. And so we have about 600 to 800 pounds of meat to put into those meals. And so I just keep it coming. Just keep it coming. So we're going to work with House of the Carpenter on Wheeling Island. They have a phenomenal organization doing great work with the less fortunate in our community, and we're going to be doing the food drive for them. We're also going to be working with them installing wheelchair ramps. They have a program, they have a volunteer there who's an engineer who designed a wheelchair ramp for people who come out of the hospital and can't get into their houses. They need a wheelchair ramp, and they don't have the money to buy a wheelchair ramp, so they're stuck outside of their houses. Well, they just show up and install a wheelchair ramp. And so they can pre-build these and install them in about an hour and a half so they can get them in really quickly and get people into their houses. And we're going to help out volunteering with putting in those wheelchair ramps, and we're going to help out with several other things with the House of the Carpenter. Third organization is Russell Nesbitt Systems. Russell Nesbitt works with special needs adults in our community, helping them find employment, helping them find fellowship, and just helping them navigate life. I love Russell Nesbitt. And we asked them, we sat down with them and said, how can we help? And they said, well, we have this Christmas party that we do in December. We said, well, how can we help with that? Well, we have to buy presents for 60 folks. I said, all right, we'll do that. And they said, what else? And they said, well, we can help setting up. And so we're going to take volunteers over there and set up and make it a gala for them. And we're going to love on their clients, and we're going to throw them a Christmas present, and we're going to buy all the a Christmas party, and we're going to throw a Christmas party for them, and it's going to be awesome. So that's going to be really neat. They also said, we need lockers for our clients. This is a real need for us, and we just don't have the money for it. And we said, well, how much? They said, $2,700. I said, we're good for it. But I put you guys on the hook because now you got to come up with the money, all right? So we're just going to, if the money comes in, we're just going to write them a check for the lockers. And we're going to buy lockers. They're going to be all set. Fourth organization is this, Grow Ohio Valley. Now, Grow Ohio Valley is putting gardens into low-income neighborhoods around the Ohio Valley, teaching people how to grow their own food and bringing healthy food into neighborhoods where vegetables are potato chips because that's all they sell at the convenient mart. And they're helping people become food independent and love what they're doing. One of their goals was to put a garden, or is to put a garden in every school in the Ohio Valley. And we loved that project. We said, how can we cooperate, or how can we partner with you with that? And they said, well, we can put a garden in a school. I said, how much? And they told us. We said, we'll write the check. Now you guys are on the hook for that too. And so if we can, we're going to write a check to put a garden in. Now, I'm so excited about the project that they came up with for us. Madison School on Wheeling Island is where we're going to put this garden. And it's not just any garden. They said what they really need is a sensory garden because they have so many kids dealing with traumatic backgrounds and ADHD and on the autism spectrum, and they have found that if they can get them out into a sensory garden, it completely changes where they are. They're in a completely different headspace, and so when they come back into the classroom, they're calmer, they're able to engage, they're able to learn better in a traditional learning environment, and it's a game changer. And so we're going to write the check for it, and then we're going to go build it. And I hope that you can be part of that team and putting that in. And the fifth organization we're working with is St. John's Children's Home. And St. John's specifically works with boys between the ages of 8 and 14 years old. And they're foster kids. They're taken out of environments that you can't get your head around. They're taken out of abusive and neglectful environments. They're taken out of drug environments. And they're taken away from their families and their parents, and they go to this place, and the people there are awesome, and they're doing a great job, and they care very much for these kids. But as we were doing the site tour, one of the things you'll find is that organizations that do a great job have a lot of resources. And you know, people want to be a part of what they're doing, and all of these organizations are doing a great job. And we said, well, how can we help? And the thing that jumped out at us as our team went and evaluated and did the site visit was that the environment they bring these kids into is very institutional. They have a family room and a living room area and a rec area, and it's just very institutional. And the guys that run the place, they're a bunch of guys caring for a bunch of little boys, and you know, they're like, we don't have a design sense among us. You know, I'm like, well, we've got people who do. What if we could come in on a weekend and do an extreme makeover on this place and make it more of a home than an institution as far as the environment's concerned? They said they would love that. So we're going to do that, and we are going to we're going to write the check, and we're going to go, and we're going to make over that environment, and it's going to be phenomenal. And then we're going to take the boys out and do all kinds of fun stuff with them while the work's being done and just love on those boys. And so really excited about that. And we've got other projects. If we raise $50,000, we've got homes for it. It's not going to stay here at the Vineyard. We are giving all of it away to our community. We are shining light, and we are practicing being rich in good deeds. Guys, there's so much we can do. If we come together, there's so much we can do. There's so much impact we can have. And here's how this is going to work. Everybody needs to play. Everybody needs to play. I figured out if we do about $50 a person, we'll hit our number. Some of us can do a whole lot more than $50. I hope you do. Some of us can't do $50. I was talking to a good friend of mine last weekend, and they were saying, I don't have an extra $50, and I get it, and this is a no-guilt thing, all right? We're going to be rich in good deeds and in kindness, and if you don't have $50, fine. Maybe come up with 5, do whatever you can, 50 cents, the widow that Jesus pointed out that gave the 2 mites. I mean, whatever you can do is fine, but don't miss out on this. As together we come together, this is going to be so much fun. It's going to grow our hearts, and we're going to make such a difference together. Don't miss out. Now, if you're here and you're visiting or you're not a Christian, this is where I'm supposed to say you don't have to participate, but you have to participate. All right, you don't want to miss this. None of it's going to the church, so if you have a problem giving money to the church, don't worry. You're not giving to the church, you're giving through the church to organizations in our community. Just $50, you can do it, and come on, let's get on this. And then volunteer and come back. If you're just visiting, be a part of this. You will have so much fun doing this. And then there are some of us that are sitting on a pile of money, and it's the end of the year, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do. Got something for you. We've done the work for you. We've vetted the organizations. It's good stuff. These are great organizations doing great things and making a difference in the Ohio Valley. And so this is an easy way to give at the end of the year. And it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the organizations. It's a win for the people they're serving. And it's a win for the church because we get to go in and be the hero and love our community well. And I just hope that all of us will jump in and be a part of this. And so here's how this is going to happen, okay? Giving, you can give in 3 ways today. One way is you got this envelope. So if you're one of the 3 people in the room with a checkbook, nobody carries checkbooks anymore. But if you do, or you want to give cash, fill out the envelope and put your money or check in there. There'll be people at the door with buckets, and you can just drop these in the buckets on the way out. Something else you can do that is very easy is if you have a smartphone, you can text the amount you want to give. So if it's $50, it would be $50, be rich, to 84321. And it'll take you about 3 minutes to set up giving or text to giving, and you can give right off your phone, and it's really easy to do, and you can just sit here for 3 minutes and get that set up and be done. And if you aren't ready to do that or you don't have a smartphone, we have stations. We have one in the back of the room here with balloons on it, and 2 in the lobby with balloons, and 1 in the cafe with balloons. And it's an iPad with a card swiper. And so if you want to give that way, you can get in line at one of those and give that way. But don't leave here today without being generous in good deeds. And remember, guys, this isn't about what the church can get. This isn't something that I want from you or that God wants from you. Is something that he wants for you. It really is more blessed to give than it is to receive. And it really does change the posture of our hearts as we deal with the abundance that we live in. Let me pray. Lord Jesus, thank you so much that you have blessed us so richly you have given us. Lord, help us to understand. Help us to get our minds around our condition. Help us to avoid the pitfalls, Lord, the side effects. Help us to be those people who live open-handed, full-hearted, Lord, and eyes wide open, making a difference in our world, loving you and loving others well, and fully alive, not plagued with the fear of what if, but the joy of being used by you. And it's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Amen. So you can just take a couple minutes and stay where you are and, text or whatever. I'm just going to sit and awkwardly watch you and make sure that every one of you is doing it. No, I'm just kidding. You take as long as you need to get set up or write your check or whatever, and then we are dismissed, and you can drop your envelopes in on your way out or visit one of the giving stations. Thanks for coming, everybody.